police, fire, and EMS. We do all three things. So today what we're going to talk about is mostly related to the police side of things. In my career so far, I've started, just a little bit about me, I've started as a patrolman in 2005, worked nights for 15 years, and in 2013 was promoted to sergeant, and from there I supervised the night shift, which was 5 or 6 officers at a time. So I did that for quite a few years, and then in 2020, I think it was 2020, finally got onto days, and that was a big adjustment. That was a big adjustment. Actually seeing people in the city and the sunshine and things like that was nice. And then this past May was promoted to lieutenant. So some of the things that I've been involved with in the department besides supervision are a lot of training. So I have spent quite a bit of time training other folks in a lot of our physical control tactics, so defensive tactics, hand fighting, ground fighting, weapon retention, things like that, taser. We have some specialized tools that we use, and I'm an instructor in those. So this is kind of fits in with my background and some of the things that I've done here at the department. So I wanted to start out also just by saying that if you have questions as I'm speaking, or a slide pops up and I finished it, and you have a question, feel free to just pop your hand up, and maybe Darcy will get to you with a microphone. It's a smaller group, so we may not need a microphone, but feel free to shoot your hand up, and then as time allows at the end, I will also have some time for questions if there's anything at the end. The other thing I like to say to folks when we start these presentations is that this is not an easy topic to discuss. And so I try to be sensitive to that. I don't know all your backgrounds. I don't know what you all have been through in life. You don't know what all I have been through in life. But discussing this topic can be fairly traumatic for some people, because the things that we're going to talk about are death and dying, and what are some of the things that we can expect if something like that were to happen here or at some other place in the city, how we would respond, how you would respond, how we respond as people. So can be a pretty heavy topic, so I want you to know that I'm sensitive to that, but I'm also a police instructor, and so I'm also probably not going to beat around the bush when it comes to talking about death and dying and murder and things like that, okay? So I understand that we're here in a church, but it's a difficult topic to discuss sometimes. So just want to let you know that we just have to talk about it, okay? So what we're going to talk about today civilian response to active shooter events. One of the things that's changing with the acronym is that it's not just active shooters, it's active attackers, because it's people attacking other people, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with a gun, okay? So it can be with a vehicle, a knife, a baseball bat, any weapon, somebody's hands. So we're talking about how do we as civilians, not necessarily me as an officer, but how do we as civilians respond to things like that, and what can we expect from our own bodies and minds when those things happen. So today we're going to talk about active attack events and our stress response. And our stress response, specifically, we're going to talk about 3 different stages of that. So the first one would be denial. We'll go through these in a minute, but just kind of as a preface. Denial, deliberation, and then decisive action. We're going to get through those things today. And then next week, Lieutenant Hudson is going to spend more time on the bottom section there, ADD, avoid, deny, defend. It also can mean run, hide, or fight. All right, so active attack events is simply attempted mass murder, okay? There are a lot of different groups out there that put numbers on this. They say it's only an active attacker event if so many people die, or if so many people were killed or wounded. An active attack event could be anybody doing anything with any weapon trying to hurt a large amount of people or a group of people at any time. Okay, so it's just attempted mass murder. We don't say it's only an active attacker event if 4 people die. Some of the questions that we get a lot of times and the public wants to know is, who is this person? Who's the attacker? Can we see this person coming? What are some of the risk factors involved in this person? Because as people, we don't like the unknown of the future. We want to know who's most likely to come into the church and do this kind of thing, okay? So generally speaking, there's not a set great profile. A lot of times we watch movies where the FBI profiles people and they can find a serial killer out of 1 million people. That's not necessarily the case. There are a couple things that some of these folks do show us. One of them is an Avenger Mindset. What this means is that somebody has felt like they've had wrong done to them, and they have chosen this option to make it right. All right? They think that they're going to settle the score by hurting a bunch of people or trying to kill a bunch of people in their mind to make it right. Okay? So somebody did something to me, I'm going to fix it by doing something to them. Some broadcast here, what this means is that usually there's some sort of sign ahead of time that people display. A lot of times it can be very overt. Somebody says, I'm going to do this, right? I'm going to go to church and I'm going to kill people. Sometimes people post things on social media or Facebook or something like that, and it might not be overt, but it might be something concerning that someone sees and is like, something's not quite right with that person. What's going on here? So people will notice a change in behavior in somebody, all right, and then either choose to say something or not. But generally speaking, there's some sort of broadcast that this is going to happen. Sometimes it's very small, people don't notice it. Sometimes it's very obvious. Some risk factors involved with these folks. One of them is just a history of violence. And it could be a history of violence that this person has done to other folks. They've been in trouble for assaulting people before, and whoever it is. Sometimes it starts on the playground as kids and then escalates into their adult lives, but they've had some sort of history of violence themselves. An exposure to violence, and this is very wide-ranging. This could be in somebody's household where they've been the victim of violence as a child or as an adult. It could be spousal violence, that sort of thing. Substance abuse or dependence. Usually when we see folks who struggle with alcohol abuse or substance abuse, it's because there's something going on in their life that they're trying to correct or numb or forget in their own way. Sometimes people pick alcohol or drugs. So it's not about the drugs or alcohol, it's about something going on in their life, in their mind, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it is, and they've chosen alcohol or drugs to fix that. So somebody struggling with substance abuse or dependence probably has something going on in the background. Mental illness. This can sometimes be triggered by alcohol or substance abuse. Sometimes it's just biological, right? Some people are born with some kind of mental issue. They haven't chosen to either get counseling for it or medication, whatever their choice is, and they're struggling with some sort of mental illness. History of suicidality. This means that somebody has gone through or is going through something so traumatic or severe in their life that either they think that they're the problem and they would be better off not even being in the world, or it could mean that they realize that they think that they're a hindrance to their family or their friends or something like that, and so they just want to be gone. Behind that is usually some sort of disconnection from reality. Some other things here: stalking, harassing, threatening behavior. This happens all over the place, right? It happens in schools, it happens in people's homes, it happens in churches. So sometimes we get folks who show up to church who have had a disagreement or an argument with someone at home, all right? And they want to either make themselves known or try and out somebody by doing this in a public place, bringing the argument that's happened in the home to church or a place of worship or something like that. So any stalking, harassing, or threatening behavior can be a warning sign and something that sometimes people see at church. Negative family dynamics, this is a wide range. There's something going on in the home, either between adults in the home, adults and kids in the home, and a lack of a support system. So if somebody in the home who's experiencing trauma or something like that doesn't have a place they can go to get help. Isolation, instability. If you notice somebody who has isolated themselves, doesn't want to be around other people, sometimes that can be dangerous because when we get in our own minds by ourselves, we can think of some crazy things. So we need people around us to help us kind of guide ourselves sometimes, and I think that's one of the important things about church is you have a community of people here you can bounce things off of. When people get isolated, they're only in their own head. They're not getting any sort of outside feedback from anybody else anymore. And then others are concerned. So if others express concern, hey, I noticed this person has started to isolate themselves, they've been posting some worrisome things on social media, maybe we should talk to them. Maybe we should talk to their family. Maybe we should find out what's going on. So let me just back this up real quick. Guess I can pause it. So this is just going to be a quick chart of some of the active attack events since 2000, and I think this runs through 2021. I think they updated it through last year. So we have the small dots are less than 4 victims, the large dots are 4 or more, and then the yellow dots are attacks with a gun, red with a knife, and then blue with a car. So I'll just play this out here. As this is playing, take a look at the map and see if you can find any trends or patterns, anything like that. We won't have time to discuss all the trends or patterns you might see, but it's educational. It's a good thing she moved. It's a good thing she lives in Michigan now. Yeah, some states don't have any at all. So in 21 years, 464 different events involving guns, knives, and cars. Anybody notice anything? Mostly guns, that's right. How about the areas that they occur? Big cities, yeah, and that's just because that's simply where the people are. You're right, that's where the people are. And if we're talking about people attacking people, it's going to happen more where people are. So locations of the attacks, a lot of times we think that most of these happen in schools, all right? Turns out they don't. Anybody want to guess why we think they mostly happen in schools?
It makes the biggest publicity.
Yeah, it's the most publicity, and nobody likes hearing about children being killed in school. It is gets the most publicity. Unfortunately, not that many people care when somebody goes into Walmart and shoots it up. They do care when somebody goes into a school and shoots it up. Okay, so that's what we hear about. Businesses, outdoors, school, other. Churches fall into other. One of the other things that people sometimes have questions on are the connection that the attacker has to where they're attacking. This is just a simple graph that shows that 42% of the attackers have a connection to the location that they're attacking or the people that they're attacking. So this could mean a student or former student of a school. This could mean a spouse or former spouse of a particular family, or a member or former member of a church congregation. They have some sort of connection either currently or in the past. So, those who can't remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So one of the things that we like to share with people are some of the things that have happened in the past. UC Santa Barbara in 2014, this is one of the reasons why we've gotten away from just calling these incidents active shooter and active attacker. In this particular case, this person used a knife to stab 3 people at his house. Then took a gun onto campus and started shooting people on campus, and then also used a vehicle to hit people with his car. So it's not just shootings that we have to protect ourselves against, it's also cars. Just real quickly too, most of you probably live in or around Grand Haven. One of the things in the past few years that we've changed when we have events downtown are we've tried to protect certain areas from vehicle assaults. If you've been downtown this summer or last summer, you notice when they block off part of Washington Street for the new social district, we also have in one lane these big blue barriers. They're called Meridian Barricades, and they're made to stop vehicles who would try and smash through a crowd and run people over. So that's what those blue barricades are for. They're specifically designed for that. So when we have the Santa Parade, or a lot of people downtown on 4th of July, Coast Guard Festival, you'd be amazed at how much time and energy we put into trying to keep people from hurting other people with vehicles. The police department is very closely in communication with the Department of Public Works because they have big, heavy dump trucks. They have all big, heavy vehicles, and so when we had the Coast Guard parade this year, we spent a lot of time figuring out, okay, where are we going to put these vehicles? Where are we going to put our barricades? Where are we going to park police cars? Because this is the parade route. This is where most people are going to be. If somebody wanted to run over a bunch of people, what are the most likely avenues that they could get enough speed to do that? And then we try and park a heavy vehicle there, put our barricades up. So we share the barricades with Holland Department of Public Safety. So when they have tulip time, they get most of the barricades. When we have 4th of July and Coast Guard, we get most of the barricades, but it's something that we think a lot about because we realize that it's not just guns, it's cars too. Orlando, Florida, Pulse Nightclub. This person killed 49 people inside of this bar. This was an incident where the attacker had a connection to the bar because he frequented it himself. Las Vegas, probably remember this one. This one was the attacker was way high up in the Mandalay Bay Hotel and was firing rifle rounds down on a group of people who were attending an outdoor concert. So one of the things to keep in mind with these things that happen outdoors in a large area, and one of the things that Nicole will talk a little bit more about next week, is how do you avoid those bullets if you're in an open area? Okay, you have to find a place that you can get to quickly, that you can be behind something that will stop bullets. And that's why the casualty number was so high. I think 59 people were killed, is because it was just such a wide open area. People would just lay down on the ground because they didn't know where the bullets were coming from, and that's not a great place to be when bullets are coming, especially from above you. So they didn't know where to go. The ones that survived either got very lucky, or they were able to leave the area and try and get behind something that was stopping bullets. New York City, this one was just a Home Depot rental truck, and anybody can rent one of these things as long as you have a driver's license. I think 18 people were injured, I think 8 people were killed. In New York City street, lots of pedestrians. This person just decided, for whatever reason, that he was going to drive through a crowd, and he did. Sutherland Springs, Texas. This one, I think 26 people were killed with a gun. The perpetrator was ex-military, Air Force veteran, and 20 people were wounded. What stopped this one ultimately was a neighbor of the church, heard all the shooting, grabbed his own rifle, and started going after the perpetrator himself before police had the time to arrive. Again, I know it's not fun, thinking about these things, but unfortunately in our world today, if we don't, it might be repeated, and what we're trying to do is keep it from being repeated here. So, the number of deaths is directly related to a couple of things. One, how quickly the police arrive, and 2, target availability. Pretty fortunate in our small town that we have at least 4 police officers on duty at all the time, usually 5. On a good day, when we have a full shift, it's 6. During the day, we have more than that because there's people like me who used to be on the road, now sitting in an office, but I would come. I would not stay in my office. I would come out and help. So, how quickly the police arrive. Again, for us, we're pretty fortunate here. We would also get county deputies showing up. We'd get any state police troopers showing up. One of the things we want to also keep in mind, though, is that we don't have 4, 5, or 6 police officers just sitting around doing nothing, ready to go to an active shooter. They're probably on some other call. They would stop whatever call they were on to come, but they're busy. We're doing other stuff. If we got a fire, all 5 or 6 police officers are also firefighters in Grand Haven. We would all be at the fire. So if we were all at a fire and something happened here at this church on a Sunday morning, it would be a delayed response. We would leave a couple people at the fire so that it didn't spread. They'd quickly jump in their police cars, take off their fire gear, put on their vests, and come here. Deputies would come here, troopers would come here, but I don't want you to be under the impression that you will have 6 police here instantly. You won't. You just won't. We're doing other things. Target availability. This is one of the reasons why we talk about the acronym ADD, avoid, deny, defend. If you can avoid the area that the attacker's at, then you are not an available target. Okay? Whether that means you're running out of the building or you choose to hide in a building and barricade the door, all right, you're not an easy available target. If the person can see you, you are a target. Okay? So those 2 things, how quickly the police arrive and target availability, are directly related to how many people die. Yes, sir?
Just a question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the way things are supposed to happen is ultimately the first few minutes there may not be any one person in charge. Okay, so it might just be that police are arriving, they hear gunshots, and they're just going in to try and stop the threat. Okay, once if that happens quickly, probably someone from the jurisdiction that the incident happened would assume incident command, and they would be in charge of the scene. What sometimes happens on fire scenes and could happen on this scene is all Grand Haven officers are in the building, and the first command officer arriving on scene might be from the county sheriff's office, or could be from the state police. They should get on the radio in a specific location and say, we're setting up a command post at this location, 6601 or whatever their number is going to be incident command. So from there, all questions to command about the organization should go through one person, or if we have a police officer, a fire officer, and an EMS officer, those three people would gather together at the command post and be unified command. So fire questions would run through fire command, police questions would run through police command. And the nice thing now is that we are all on the same radio frequencies. We all have 800 megahertz radios, so we can communicate with each other pretty easily. One of the things that County Dispatch and the radio committee is working on now is setting up specific channels for how to make that communication go much smoother. So what they want is, initially, everybody would be on the same radio channel, so everybody could hear everything. The problem with that is that that channel can get overloaded. So it'd be the responsibility of the incident commander to tell everybody at the incident area, okay, our primary contact team who's going into the building needs to be on this specific channel, and everybody switches to that channel. The outer perimeter officers and firefighters need to be on this channel. They would switch to that channel. So communication and organization is definitely very difficult, but you're exactly right. Like in Texas, there was a lot of confusion and miscommunication, and on big scenes that we've had, especially fire scenes and things like that, communication can be a tough issue. So in December, Grand Valley State University is also holding kind of a regional or county-wide active shooter response training where some of those things are going to be talked about. We're all pretty good at practicing and training going in and stopping the threat. What's difficult is the communication part, and so that's one of the reasons that Ottawa County Emergency Management and the radio committee is talking about we need to set up these specific channels. So the channels, I believe, have been designated, but now it's going to be a matter of practicing and training with it. I know this summer they also did a critical incident training at Grand Valley where they simulated a vehicle assault, and so they had police, fire, and EMS there testing out how that communication would go. So it really is important that some sort of command gets set up right away and that everybody listens to the commander. Good question. So 3 minutes. This is the period of time when you're on your own. On average, it takes officers 3 minutes from the time they get the call to get to wherever the active attacker event is happening. And this is just a very broad spectrum from across the country, right? If you're in Grand Haven, it might be less than 3 minutes. If you're in the middle of Montana, it might be an hour, okay? So this is just an average. And this is the time that an officer gets the call to getting on scene. It doesn't mean that that's the time an officer gets the call to neutralizing the threat or finding where you are and getting you out of the building or helping you get out of the building, because there's a lot of other factors. If we were to come here and you say the person's in the sanctuary, if you haven't been in this building before, you may not know where the sanctuary is. Okay, so if an officer had been in this building before, they could get in the sanctuary very quickly. If you hadn't been here before, they might actually park out on Sheldon Street and come into a different part of the building. So 3 minutes is kind of a blurry number, but it just means that's the time where you guys are responsible for what happens, okay? So we're going to talk a little bit about disaster response and just kind of, yeah.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Would you suggest that groups like ours invite the public safety department to come in advance and
Yes.
do like a walkthrough
Yes, absolutely. We do that with the schools. We have blueprints of the schools. We spent quite a bit of time this summer trying to work with the school district and get actual keys that work to get us in. We bought some new tools to help us get into schools that would work to help us get in here. That would absolutely be a great idea. A lot of times we do that from the fire side because we want to know how a building's built. We want to know what kinds of things are in the building that might be a danger to us as firefighters. But it would be a great idea, and we can work that out through myself or Lieutenant Hudson too, to have a couple shifts come through the church when it's convenient for you and just take a look around. Okay? Yeah, absolutely. Question back here, sir.
Darcy, a couple of years ago, the safety committee had the chief come through.
Okay.
So,
Mm-hmm.
your police chief, I don't remember his name, but
Jeff Hawk?
he's
Mhm.
been here, he's done a walkthrough with the safety committee.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean that the rest of the regular officers shouldn't do that too, but it has been done.
Okay, I don't know if everybody heard that, but it's been done a couple of years ago, so we can review that if we need to.
Yeah, and since in the last couple of years, we've got a bunch of new people who haven't, who maybe haven't been through the church or even know what the name of this church is. Okay? So some of the background science of how people behave in high-stress events. So now is when we're going to talk about denial, deliberation, and then decisive action. So, denial, deliberation, decisive moment, or decisive action. Denial. Denial is the first stage of... No, it's not. No, it isn't. There are a couple reasons why we deny something critical is going on. One of those things is called normalcy bias, and that's because our brains are lazy, okay? We don't want something bad to be happening. What we want is for the loud pops that we just heard to be fireworks, okay? That's what our brain wants. We don't want there to be actual gunshots where people are getting killed or murdered. So our brains say, oh, it's probably just fireworks. It's almost 4th of July, it's probably just fireworks, okay? So we want this to be some normal event, okay? We try and reconcile it with something that we've experienced in the past, and we just want it to be normal. One of the examples that they use is during the World Trade Center attacks in 2001. They found that one of the buildings was hit by the airplane, and you had people in that building calling other people in that building, saying, "Are you okay? Is something going on?" The smoke alarms are going off, the fire alarms are going off. We had people in the other tower calling over to the tower that got hit, asking all these questions. People in the tower were doing things like, well, I guess we should leave. Let me log out of my computer. Let me pack up my briefcase. All right? Let me do all these things that I normally do at the end of my workday because we want it to be normal. Okay? What people don't want to have to think about is that, oh my word, something terrible has just happened. I need to leave now. Get up and just leave. Okay? Sometimes that happened, but a lot of stories that have come out of that were that we don't believe this is happening. And so we're just going to do our normal routine. We're going to treat it like a fire drill or whatever, something not critical, and leave. Okay? So normalcy bias, we want it to be something normal. We don't want to have to think about our church service on a Sunday morning being interrupted by something so horrific. The other thing is called social proof, and kind of what this means is that we tend to do as humans what the people around us are doing. Okay? If you're sitting down at a fancy dinner table and you don't know what all the forks are for, you look around and you see what other people are doing. All right, salad came out, someone grabbed that fork, so I'm going to grab that fork. All right, we tend to do that. Even coming to a place like church. If you're here for the first time, you're probably not going to come sit up front, okay? You may not know where to go, you may not know where to park, but you follow people into the parking lot. You don't know which entrance to use, so you look and wait and see where people are coming in, and you decide, okay, I'm going to go in that door. You look and see where people are sitting, all right? And then you decide where to sit based on that. So we tend to look around and see what other people are doing. If other people are doing the wrong thing, we might be doing the wrong thing, okay? So if what we need to do is get out of the building now, but everyone else is not doing that, our tendency then is to say, oh, this must not be a big deal. I'm just going to do what everybody else is doing and kind of go along with the crowd, okay? So, quick video here just on some of the social science behind this. Do we have audio for this that we can? I'm going to let it play and see if we can get audio over the speakers here. When we do, I'll back it up again. If we don't, I can also give just a rundown of it. No? Okay, that's all right. So I'll let this play and I'll kind of just describe what's happening. What's going on here is this is an actor pretending to be in pain, okay, or injured. And what the study was to find out how many people would actually stop and help this person, okay? So you saw that person just step over him, okay? Just step over him. This guy sees him but isn't doing anything. People are just going about their daily lives. Nobody is actually stopping to help this person, and he's crying out, you know, he's even saying, help me, I think, but everybody is just kind of walking past. Part of that's because everybody else is. Everybody else is. If that person dressed like a businessman isn't stopping to help that person, and I'm just a construction guy or whatever, there's nothing I can do about that. I'm just going to keep walking, okay? And this went on for, I think, 15 minutes, the first one. So this is another one. This guy, you know, just sets up his laptop or whatever he's got going right next to this person. You know, I think when they interviewed some of the people afterwards, they thought, well, this person's just intoxicated. They're just a drunk. They're just homeless, whatever it is. And we're going to, you know, just let them sit there. What he's saying is that I didn't want to get involved. I have my own life. I got places I got to be. I got to go to work. I didn't want to be involved. So you can see the clock up there, you know, 4 minutes. This person just laying there.
I think a little blood would help.
Probably to see if this person's actually injured. Yeah.
But I'm serious.
Mm-hmm.
If this is a big city, you're not going to take a chance on these bums.
Maybe not. Do I have that option as a police officer? No. I don't really have the option. I don't. But the point that this is making is, generally speaking, we do what other people are doing. And eventually, one person stops to help, and then the next person, this woman here, is, you know, has a second thought. She reconsiders. Maybe she was going to go by, but she decides to stop. Now this person, they dressed up nice and fancy in his Sunday best, and immediately people come over. Immediately. Why is that? He's not a bum. This person must be worth something, okay? So, and look at all these people. The police are called, EMS is called, all the, you know, everything happens for this particular person. Again, the point is that we follow the crowd very easily. You have a question?
Yes, I do.
Mhm.
This very thing happened to me. My sister and I were riding our bikes. We were in a deserted sort of place. There was a person laying in the grass with a hoodie over his head. So, you know, you just think intoxicated or sleeping off or whatever. And we rode on by and we felt terrible. But what, I don't know what is kind of as women, and I'm just like, what should we do in that case? I mean, on our cell phones, call 911, but what if he is just sleeping?
Then the police will get there, find out he's sleeping, and then leave. Yep, feel free to call. You don't have to stay if you feel uncomfortable, but make sure you give the police or the dispatcher specific information on where the person is so we can find them. But yeah, we don't want people to put themselves in an uncomfortable situation themselves, but yeah, feel free to make the call and we'll go there and check it out. Maybe the person's sleeping, maybe they're not, and maybe they need our help. All right, so denial. We want to get past that denial phase very, very quickly, okay? The longer we take to try and decide if something serious is actually happening, the more people are dying if something serious is actually happening, okay? We want to get through the denial phase. Deliberation. Now we have to come to the point where we decide what we're going to do, okay? What are we even going to do about this? Is there anything I can do? What are my options? What are my choices? The issue with this, and what we deal with a lot in police training, is this deliberation phase also has to happen very quickly. Okay? People expect us, as police officers, firefighters, to know what to do very quickly, and sometimes forget that we're humans who haven't dealt with this thing before, but we still try to make decisions quickly. We still try to get people where they need to be. We still try and do what needs to be done very quickly. But this deliberation phase has to happen. So that's why we do a lot of training, so that we can be exposed to certain things that we might expect in an active shooter situation or an active attacker situation or a house fire. That's why we do training, is to get ourselves, our minds and bodies, used to doing this thing, so that if it does happen, we don't have to think about it, we just do it, okay? And that's what I want to express to you folks too, is that the time when it's happening is not the time to decide which door do I go out. Do I go out to my car? Do I go out that way? Do I go out this way? Do I hide in the building? Do I play dead? Which is one of the things that Lieutenant Hudson will talk about next week. What do I actually do here? So now is the time that we want to be thinking about these things. So deliberation, the decision-making process. Human brain versus the lizard brain. So the human brain is slow and methodical and calculating. It likes to weigh all our options. If I do this, then this will happen. Oh wait, I have this other option over here. Now I want to think about that and do that. So it's when it comes to needing to do things quickly, sometimes it's not that great unless we've done it before, okay? The lizard brain is very reactive, okay? If something startles you, you hear a loud noise, we might do this, all right? And that's our lizard brain saying, was that a gunshot? I don't know, but it was a loud noise, and so you need to get your head down 4 inches, and you need to put your hands up to protect yourself. It just instantly happens, okay? So there are good things and bad things about the human brain versus the lizard brain. Human brain is good because we can think through these things, but we do it slowly. The lizard brain automatically sometimes makes us do things, and this is where we talk about some of that animal reaction, like are we running, are we hiding, are we fighting? What's our reaction when you think of the animal kingdom, or deer hunters in here or something like that? You're walking through the woods, deer will run from you, okay? Or they will stand very still and try and hide. They won't fight you. Some animals will, but there's basically just instinct. It's animal instinct. Am I going to run? Am I going to hide? Or am I going to fight? So along with that, this balance between our human brain and the animal brain, and there they use words like fight, flight, or freeze. The reason that the animal brain can be dangerous to us sometimes without the human brain involved is that if I just flee this room because I hear gunshots, I don't know yet if I'm running into a dangerous area. If the gunshots are coming from out there, but I'm not sure, and I just run out there, that's a problem. But if my animal brain is saying, you need to get out of here now, there has to be some piece of the human brain that says, okay, yes, you need to get out of here now, but where's the safest spot? Okay? Do I need to fight this person? How do I do that? Where do I do that? Do I do it now or do I wait a second? Do I freeze? Do I hide? Maybe it's good for me to freeze right now, but I can't stay frozen or I'm going to die. Okay, so there's a lot involved there. So along with our brains, our bodies do certain things too when we're faced with stress, and we've all probably experienced this. Your heart rate goes up, and it can be something small. You feel nervous or you get startled or slightly afraid. You feel your heart start to beat a little bit. Your face might get flush. You feel your blood pressure go up, and this could even be from having an uncomfortable conversation with somebody that you're not looking forward to. Like, our body does these things, okay? So heart rate at 60 beats a minute. This is like me laying down at bed at night ready to go to sleep. It's probably around 60 beats a minute. One of the examples that we talk about in how our heart rates go up might be, let's, for example, say I'm ready to go to bed, I'm laying down in bed, and everything's quiet, but now I hear some kind of knock on my basement back slider door. It sounds like someone's knocking on it. And my eyes come open, and I'm trying to listen, and I hear it again. That's not normal. It's late at night. Someone's not knocking on the front door. Why would somebody be at the back door? And why would they be knocking? This is odd. So I get up out of bed, and I start to make my way downstairs. Okay, my heart rate's up a little bit because I'm nervous about what's going on. So maybe at 90 beats a minute, I start to experience some things, and you will too. Okay, at 90 beats a minute, you start to lose your fine motor skills. Okay, because your body is saying something's going on. Where we need the blood is in your brain and in your heart and in your large muscle groups. It just tells you that. Okay, so you start to lose some of your fine motor skills. The problem with losing fine motor skills when you need them is that you don't have them. Like, what if you need a key? You need a key to get out of a building. Okay, do you think you're going to be able to find the key? First of all, find the proper key in your pocket or wherever it is. Hold it in your hand properly without shaking. Unlock the door. Okay, probably not. We lose our fine motor skills, and one of the things we do in police training is when we get to these levels of stress, we don't do things that require fine motor skills. Okay, gross motor skills are what we use. So when we fire our weapons, when we reload our weapons, when we work on physical control tactics, defensive tactics, fighting other people in training scenarios, we don't use our fine motor skills. We don't use our fingers. We use our hands to grasp, all right? We use our legs, our big muscle groups to deal with the situation. Okay, so at 90 beats per minute, you start to lose your fine motor skills. At 120 beats per minute, you start having cognitive issues, like you start to not think so clearly, okay? You definitely lose your fine motor skills. You also lose some of your gross motor skills. They start to be compromised. But at this point here, 120 beats per minute is actually your best response for the lizard brain stuff, the fighting or the fleeing. Okay, you will be stronger, your most strongest, and your fastest. You will run the fastest. You will fight the hardest at 120 beats per minute, because that's when our body has pumped all this adrenaline, okay, and we're ready to either fight or run or do something. Okay, so this might be in my situation where all of a sudden I'm starting to go downstairs, but I hear the glass break to my door and somebody inside my house. And then I am really concerned, especially if my wife and kids are home, that this is not a good situation at all. Okay, so I might be at 120 beats per minute. 150 beats per minute, condition white they call it. This is where you really start to lose your cognitive ability and you experience things like tunnel vision, auditory exclusion, so you don't hear things, or you might hear things that aren't there. So tunnel vision, you might only see a very narrow area. And what this is your body saying, we don't care what's going on in the periphery. All we care about is that person right there who's in your house, and is that person a danger to you right now? We don't care what the sounds are right now. Because it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what that person is doing. So we start to lose some of these abilities. There's a lot of reports of people, officers, veterans, in these highly critical incidents that say, I didn't hear a thing. I didn't hear a thing. Things happened very quickly, or things happened very slowly. All right, so these things happen in our mind, but our body does it on purpose to help us be successful. Condition black, 175 beats per minute. This kind of thing is when your body just sort of shuts down. You might collapse, you might pass out, you are just completely overwhelmed by the situation. And this is especially dangerous because now you have no way to defend yourself, right? Sometimes this happens very quickly. If people haven't conditioned themselves, people are startled and they just fall to the floor. Their knees give out and they just fall to the floor. Like that's their body immediately just shooting up their heart rate, and they can't do anything, okay? So going over these things is just something that we can expect, and in training, we focus on these things so that if these things happen to us, it's not a surprise, but also conditioning ourselves to have our bodies be used to operating in a high level of, our heart rate being high. So if our heart rate's high and we're used to operating in that level, and we're doing things, we're thinking, it just gives us practice in that condition.
Does extreme exercise on your part help control that?
Yes. Yeah, very much so. So if your body is used to, your heart is used to being at 120 beats per minute during exercise, and your lungs are used to it, your cardiovascular system is used to that, it's a tremendous help. It's a tremendous help. It's like asking a car that hasn't gone over 20 miles an hour in 10 years to all of a sudden do it. Okay, you just hit the gas and you're like, this car hasn't done it in a while, I don't know what's gonna happen. Well, if you haven't maintained the tires or the motor or anything like that, you could have a problem. But if you're in a race car that's used to going this fast all the time, going 120 miles an hour is no big deal because it's built for it, okay?
So this is a matter of association, not causation.
Go further.
Well, if your heart goes 150 beats per minute, that doesn't mean it's causing, it's not caused by whatever. It just happens to be an association. If the danger level rises, your heart rate rises. But it doesn't mean that your heart being at 150 is causing
That's right.
this sort of thing.
That's right.
Because as Doug points out, sometimes 150 is good.
Yes.
Because it helps you run a marathon.
Yeah, that's right. So I think what I'm hearing you say is that it can be subjective based on the person. If the person is used to being at 120 beats per minute, they're probably gonna operate very effectively. If they're not used to being at 100 beats per minute, they probably won't if they're not used to it. Yeah, so it is very dependent on the person itself. And these are general numbers, and people who have a high level of training are going to deal with these things very differently than somebody with no training at all. See how we're doing for time here. So I don't think this video had audio anyway. I'll play it here. What I want you to notice is this is an incident where somebody came into a supermarket and started shooting. What I want you to notice is in a second right here, you'll see a woman with a child in a stroller. Okay, let's just watch it first real quick. People are trying to get out of the way. All right. The point I want to make here, and I'll play it again here, is how long it takes her to get her child out of the stroller because she's experiencing a lot of stress. How many times a day do you think she does this? A dozen maybe, if she's out and about. We practice a lot at unbuckling buckles, buckling buckles, all this stuff. So what you see her doing is she's stressed, all right? Her heart rate is somewhere high, and even though she's done this thousands of times, taken her child out of this, She can't do it effectively, gives up, and at one point just grabs the child and starts ripping him out of the stroller. Okay, so this is kind of an example of our mind and body doing something that we're not used to, having to do it quickly. The other thing I want to bring up here is, why did she do that? Why did she even try and get her child out of the stroller? If it was best for her to leave the store with her child, which she obviously felt like it was, why did she try and take the child out of the stroller? Why didn't she just roll the stroller out the door or pick up the stroller and leave if the basic point is to get my child out of harm's way? My theory is that she's a mom, and we feel very protective of our children, and we feel that we can protect our children most, or we want to comfort our children if they're close to us, right? So this mom felt like, I need to get out of here, but first, I need to take my child out of the stroller, hold her to me, and then leave, which is a normal human response, but in a situation like that, might not be the best response. Okay, so a couple things going on here. Fine motor skills deteriorate under stress, can't unbuckle. I just use my gross motor skills now and try and rip the child out of the stroller. Sort of works, but then we want to go back and say, is that even necessary? Is it even necessary? Grab the stroller and get out. Push the stroller out. It's probably faster than trying to carry a stroller. Strollers have wheels on purpose. Okay, so a lot of different things going on here with our human brain. I know we're getting close to the end of our time, and so what we're going to end with is just a little bit of a case study on the station nightclub fire, and a couple things I want to hit on. So we're in this deliberation point, and this is where we're trying to decide what to do. The station nightclub fire, a lot of people died, okay? A lot of people died, and there are 4 exits. The main exit right here, or main entrance and exit right here, is where everybody came into this concert. It was an indoor concert, and there's a bar and a kitchen and everything. There is another exit off the kitchen, a third exit off the main bar, and then a 4th exit near the stage. What happened is that the concert venue and bar got filled with people. Everybody came in door number 1. There were pyrotechnics on the stage, and they ended up lighting the ceiling on fire. We don't have audio, so that's fine, but I'll play this and you can kind of... Oh, there's some audio now. So they're in this concert. Fireworks go off, which is a bad idea anyways, indoors. Lights the stuff on fire. Now what you start to see is people trying to make a decision on, is this real? Is this supposed to happen? That denial part. The band stops, everybody starts realizing this is not good. Okay, we're not in denial anymore. Now we got to deliberate and find out where we want to go. Where do you think everybody wanted to go? Which door? Door number 1 that they all came in, because that's what they're used to, even though there were 3 other doors they could have gotten out. Okay, so smoke alarms are going off, fire alarms are going off. Everybody's headed towards the door. When you get to this point where all of a sudden you realize, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to get out this door, the animal brain really starts kicking in and saying, I need to do whatever is possible to get out of here. People started pushing, shoving, people fell on the ground. Not everybody could get out the door. The door got clogged with people, and those that could find an exit were able to get out. Those that couldn't perished inside the nightclub. So this is an indication, all these dots are indications of where people were found by the firefighters once they could get inside. So this first entrance was clogged with 31 people. And part of the issue was that this railing here prevented people from really coming out of the door quickly. They had to come out, stop, and then make a left or a right. Probably no one used this exit because it's so close to where the fire was. but people started running away from the fire wherever they could, okay? A lot of people were found here, a lot of people found here. Some windows were broken for escape, but not very effectively, because as soon as you break windows when there's a fire, it just feeds oxygen. So a lot of things were learned about human reaction to these critical events, okay? What we're encouraging people to do is think about what are your other options. Like for me right now, coming here for the first time, when I came in the west door, Darcy said, I'll meet you at the west door. Okay. I know there's a door there. I got here this morning. I know that this is a pretty easy entrance to come in. All right, when we came into the foyer area out there, I could see these doors were open. I could also see some doors over there were open. So in my mind, I for sure have one way I can get out of this building completely. It's that west entrance. I know there are two ways I can get out of the sanctuary. Okay, but what are the other ones? Oh wait, there's one. Handy green signs that say exit. Any over here? Oh good, there's one over there. Okay, so a lot of times under stress, we just do what we have done. We always just do what we have done. We drive the same way to work. We drive the same way to church. Okay, we come in the building the same way. We leave the building the same way. What we want people to think about is, what if you can't do that anymore? Have you thought about where else you could go out? Okay? Have you thought about where else you could go out? An example of this, sometimes when I was on the road, sometimes I'd pull over somebody who was on the way to church because they were speeding. They were obviously late to church. Get up to the window, and I say, sir, did you happen to see that you drove right past the road closed sign because there's construction going on? Well, yes, sir, I did, but I got to get to church. I got to get to church. I understand that. The reason that the road's closed is because there's is dangerous for you to drive in here. Okay, you might get into an accident because it's just dirt and there's metal everywhere, but this is the way I go to church. I go to church this way all the time. Okay. Follow me, and we'll get you through this safely. But it's just the mentality of, but I do this every time. What we have to start thinking about is, if you can't do that, have you already thought about what you're going to do next? And are you in a position to help other people do that also? Okay, because like we saw with the social proof, if everyone's just doing what everyone else is doing, and that's the wrong thing, we need some people to be able to step up and say, we don't want to go out that door. Let's go out this door, and have the wherewithal to do it. It's kind of a sad photo, but this is some of the video and photos that people took trying to get out of the nightclub. So, a couple things about deliberation and making this decision. Calm yourself if you can, all right? This is a difficult thing to do because we don't like to hear it from other people sometimes. Just calm down. You're upset, just calm down. I can't calm down. Okay, so if you can, calm yourself. Do some breathing, okay? We call it sometimes box breathing or tactical breathing, where we take in a deep breath for 4 seconds. Hold it for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds. When you can lower your heart rate a little bit. And then you can start to maybe think a little bit more clearly. You've had a chance to think about what's going on, what your options are. Okay, so breathe. Shift your emotion from fear to survival. We do this all the time in police world because sometimes we have to go on the attack or be offensive in how we handle situations. Okay? We can't let someone punch us and beat on us forever. At some point, we have to stop that. Okay? So we have to shift our emotion from fear, oh my gosh, this person's attacking me, to, oh no, you didn't. You did not just attack me. And here's what's going to happen now, because I have to go on the offensive. Okay? It's not necessarily anger, okay, but it might be a lot of aggression, and it's survival, because I got a wife and 3 kids. Okay, who else am I protecting in here? Am I protecting the rest of the family, not just protecting myself, but somebody else? So we have to have a very distinct shift in emotion from fear, holy cow, there's somebody in the church who's trying to harm people, to survival mode. Okay, I can survive a couple different ways. I can leave, or if it comes down to it, what do I have to do to bring the fight and the aggression to somebody else if it came to that? I can't just hide in this room the whole time. If the person came in this room and I just sat here, what would happen to me? Okay, so there has to be a shift in mindset from fear to aggression, and Lieutenant Hudson will talk a little bit more about that this week. Oh, the stay fit part here. Stay fit because our bodies are now used to this, or more used to it, okay? I can run if I've practiced running, okay? If my cardio's good, I can run for a lot longer. I can fight for a lot longer. My heart's used to it, my brain's used to it. So, scripting and practice. Again, in police world, we do this a lot, and in firefighter world, we do this a lot. We're always asking ourselves these questions. If this happens, then I'm going to do this. If this happens, then I'm going to do this. If this happens, I'm going to do this. For you folks, it might be, if somebody came in that door, and I'm sitting here, what do I do? If somebody came in that door, and I'm sitting here, is what I do sitting here differently than what I do if I'm sitting back there? What if somebody came in that door and I'm sitting here? It's constant. These are constant questions. And sometimes police, we drive ourselves crazy with the what ifs. What ifs, what ifs, what ifs. And it's our way of trying to pre-plan and pre-program our brains to get through the denial phase very quickly, get through the deliberation phase very quickly, where I now don't have to decide what my four options are, okay? I know that this is what I'm going to do, and that's what I do when I go to church and sit down in a specific place in a pew. Is it my crazy brain? I don't know. I just don't want to be a victim. Okay, so when I sit down anywhere, in a restaurant with my family, someone comes in there, I'm doing this. Someone comes in there, I'm doing this. Someone comes in there, I'm doing this. If someone comes in there and I can't do what I thought I was going to do, then I'm getting the family out there. Can I tip this table over and use it as cover? What other things do I have in here to use as weapons? All that kind of stuff. Okay, so scripting in your mind, but then also practicing. That's why we make kids do fire drills at school. When was the last time a school ever burned? It's been a long time, right? But we still do fire drills so that we can prepare kids for something terrible that happens. Right? Now we do school lockdown drills too. Okay? So if someone were to come into a school or they were to have an issue outside the school, there's certain protocols that they do to lock the doors, hide in sight, close the windows, all those different things. Okay? So that's practice. I don't know if you guys have fire drills here. Some churches do. Okay? Some people come to us and say, we want to practice lockdown drills at a place like Shape or something massive. It's huge. This building is huge. It has offices and a work area. So a lot of places are thinking about these things, like how do we practice? How do we now practice these? Okay, so these are all great ideas. And I've thought about myself, or you've thought about yourself. What would I do? But now as a church group or a congregation, what's our plan? Where are we going to meet? Who's going to make the phone calls? All these different questions that come up when we talk about things like this. So, scripting and practice. I'm going to just briefly touch on this. So we get to deliberation and the decisive moment. I'm not going to play the video because I'm not sure if it would work, but basically this gentleman is talking about 3 friends in Europe. They're on vacation. 2 of them were American veterans, and they had a 3rd friend with them. Someone started shooting people on a train they were on, okay? And without even hesitating, all 3 of them decided together, we got to go now. They made it through the denial phase very quickly. They made it through the deliberation phase very quickly, and they physically attacked this person who had a rifle, and they didn't have any weapons themselves. They tackled him. At least one of these friends was shot by the rifle. They attacked him. They took the rifle away from him. I think the person had a pistol on him too, tried to use the pistol, they took that away from him, and they held him down until the authorities could come. Okay, so it's just a quick example of what may have to happen in just a matter of seconds. Denial. You know, it is gunshots. It's not fireworks, it is gunshots. Who's lighting fireworks off on a train? No, it's gunshots. There's the guy. If we sit here and do nothing, who's he going to kill? We decide very quickly that we have to go over there and stop him. And then they take the decisive action, that decisive moment, and they go and do it. Okay? So that's kind of where I want to leave you guys this morning. I know I went a little bit over, but I think it'll be a good spot for Lieutenant Hudson next week to come in and say, okay, we've talked about what happens to our bodies and our minds during stress response. We have to get through denial. We have to get through deliberation and the decision making, and we come to this decisive moment. So when it comes to the decisive moment, now what are our options? Are we going to run? Are we going to hide? Are we going to fight? Okay? Are we going to avoid, deny this person access to the room, or are we going to defend ourselves? And if we decide we're going to defend ourselves, how are we going to do that? Okay, are there any questions at the end here? I know some of this moves pretty quickly, but I'm trying to be respectful of your time also. It's a Sunday and we have lunch to eat, right? Okay, thank you very much.